My name is Chelsea, and I'm with Mezmo, and today I'm going to discuss a little bit about how you can create self-optimizing telemetry systems with edge intelligence, what that really means, because I know it's a mouthful, and why you should care about it. So, to start off, a little bit about me. So as I said, my name is Chelsea, and I work on the go-to-market team here at Mezmo. And so this means that I work not only as a customer success engineer to make sure that our customers are consistently having a great experience in our tool, right? And are consistently getting those aha moments, which make them, really find benefit in it and make them want to stay. But I'm also trying to figure out what that first aha moment is as a solutions engineer before a contract is even signed, right? And so this experience has given me really a direct line of sight into a lot of the recurring patterns in the observability space, especially as they relate to pain points, right? So to put things into perspective, as a human race, we have generated we're almost at 200 zettabytes of data. Nearing 2026, I think we're going to hit that number. But as you can see in the bar graph to my left, that is just continuing to go up, especially as we see these agentic systems ingest data and then create different formats, different types of data by themselves, right? And this is only going to become a more and more common pattern, right? So a lot of these systems are used in a ton of different destinations to feed the tools that you are actually leveraging for the teams that need them most. So for example, your BI teams, or maybe your SRE teams. You just have a lot of teams that I work with have this wide sprawl of end destinations that they need the data that they're producing to get into. But what the problem becomes is all of these sources, right, that they are producing data off of. These sources produce data in different formats or different modalities sometimes, right? And so you might be, standing up a Java, Go, Python app, and perhaps you're logging in semi-structured or structured data formats. But maybe you're also ingesting events from IoT devices, and those are Avro events, and they need to be deserialized, right? You might be using social media APIs, and you might need all of that content to feed BI tools, but also to feed other endpoint destinations at the same time. So then, as you can kind of see from this slide, we have the problem where we have a really diverse set of data that we need to work with. And so what a lot of my clients ask me is what is the best practice that you would recommend or architect to manage all of these different patterns and schemas so that we can get them successfully into the downstream destinations that we're using. Right? So, this massive proliferation of data in these gargantuous rates, it really raises the critical question of how are we going to effectively retrieve this data, pre-process it successfully, and then transmit it in real time intelligently, right? So that is actually accepted and usable in the destinations that we need it most. And so the first thing that I like to talk about before I get into the full solution is the applicable use cases that we can actually use to kind of compare this against. So the use case that I have, as I said, I work kind of in the pre-sales and the post-sales teams at Mezmo, is this one that I've outlined kind of here on the slides, right? So we have this prospect, and this prospect is like many I've seen and a lot of the clients I support post-sales, and they ingest terabytes and terabytes of data from the clients they support in a whole plethora of different formats. And there is no way that they can really keep track of what those formats might be or how they might evolve, right? And so they come to us and they're like, hey, we need to get this data into a logging tool that we want to make available for them. We need to get it into a BI tool, and we need to get it into our AI platforms to create actually content off of. And so our recommendation when we see things like this is, all right, you don't really necessarily know what you're going to create. Well, we need to add some sort of intelligence in front of this so that if the format changes, if the type of data coming in changes, we're prepared, right? So that is the type of use case that I like to use to compare against this solution, because it's very common, and I would imagine everyone here has run into likely something similar in their careers. So the next slide that I have is kind of more of the solution of what we recommend and what we architect for a lot of the clients that we work with. And so the biggest thing that is kind of, intelligently applied is this layer of recommendation, which uses agentic AI to actually continuously profile the data that you're producing from any producer or source that you choose, right? And that might change over time, right? Especially as we see in the previous example that I kind of laid out. Adding this intelligence layer at the edge, which means closest to the sources that are producing it, is able to give you a lot of flexibility in how you're managing that content. And by that, I mean, as this content changes formats, if you have an intelligent layer sitting at the edge with all of your collectors and the sources that you're ingesting data from, then you can actually use agentic AI to analyze it on the spot. So that means that if you're sending in semi-structured data, structured data, events that need to be deserialized, and you give this system a use case and you say, hey, I want to actually send that data to New Relic, or I want to send it to a SIM, or I want to send it to this API. Like, what is the way that I would do this in a normalized format that will be accepted downstream? This system will consider every source that you are actually including, and it'll give you recommendations, patterns, and ways to directly apply those pre-parsing mechanisms in motion, so in real time before they hit those end destinations, right? And so that's what I talk about when I talk about continuous profiling. I talk about the intelligence layer, and then you want to remain vendor agnostic, right, for any team that might need this data or any system or tool. And that's where kind of that multi-destination fan out from that intelligent layer, those recommendations, those pre-parsing mechanisms that you can directly apply in motion with something like a telemetry pipeline really benefit you, right? So that's a little bit more about the solution, but hopefully this video loads and you can see it. This video kind of goes over how it works. So what this system does is it actually applies, again, AI at the edge. So all the sources that I've set up there, you see we were getting Kubernetes events, we're getting events from IoT devices, and we're getting events from syslog, right? So different formats of data. We're applying agentic AI on top of that, and we're asking the agent, or saying, hey, like, what types of data are we producing? And so the agent's giving us a synopsis of the different types of data we're producing. And from there, we can ask it further questions like, how do I better aggregate this? Or how do I better extrapolate these conclusions that I want to make in my downstream tools, right? You can apply direct use cases into the system and base it off the data you're producing. And so the agent can actually go in and apply those as parsers in motion. So as you are using this data downstream in real time, it's also being transformed in real time to actually be able to be sent to that destination. And if your sources change, then, you've got agentic AI at the edge, which will provide updated recommendations and normalization patterns for those end destinations that you're using, right? So, to summarize, a lot of what we see today are data sets in tons of different formats, right? Especially as modalities increase and the amount of data we're producing as a race really increases. We need a way to actually be able to keep track of the content that we are pushing forward to analytics tools, to APMs or SIMs or BI tools, et cetera, right? And so as you are considering that data stream, if you can actually manage that data in motion, right? Because everyone we work with now needs data in real time. So to actually support this solution and normalize those data sets so that they are received into real time in the destinations you want, what you can do is you can use something like a telemetry pipeline, but what is really important is to use intelligent systems on top of those pipelines that can recommend and directly apply normalization patterns and things like deserialization to complex data sets. So that is all that I have, but I would love to open the floor up to questions from you all and also know maybe more about how you are working with your observability data today and how you're thinking about agentic AI even. So that's it from me.